The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For what I am is with me. Its rod and its staff, they comfort me. They preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. It anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here, getting the day started. Just completed the 34-hour restart, leaving Monroe, Louisiana, headed to Virginia. These roads are particularly destroyed. Kabam, kabam. Just a moment. The potholes are demanding my full attention. I thought Huey Long paved the roads in Louisiana. What happened to that? Always makes me think of these people that want to buy a truck. Oh, get them a nice truck. Brand new truck. Go out here and destroy it on these destroyed roads. Like, why? For what? Let the company pay for that. Why you want to pay for it? It's common sense, right? It's common sense to start out in long haul trucking with the big company, because that's who hires somebody with no experience. Because the mom and pops, that's where it's at. And then once the driver halfway knows what they're doing, oh yeah, I got to get your own truck. That's common sense. Oh, okay. Well, to me, it's always been common sense that somebody's going to end up paying for what used to be $20,000 for an engine. Ain't no telling how much it is today. Shout out to this Normie for normalizing slow big rigs. Thanks, Normie. Appreciate you looking out and normalizing slow big rigs. And there's hardly anybody on the road, but let's ride together. Because that Normie, they lack self-direction. That's how they're normies. The normie or the NPC normie lacks self-direction. Because strongly identified with this realm of delusion, the world of death and the game of lies, in being so closely identified and aligned with the strong inverted delusion, that precludes self-direction. What level of development, what level of trust, what level of confidence would be required to boldly perform within the realm, but then to, what is the barometer to gauge, being doing what the realm requires, the delusory, illusory realm. And then some would say, well, it's common sense what the requirements are. Oh, is it? Oh, is it? We'll start listing them off, and I'll pick them apart one by one. Say, well, that can't be true. That can't be true. That can't be true. Whatever it may be. So the normie backwards engineers based on an outside authority letting them know that whatever they're doing is completely appropriate at any given time, which is some version of the fake it till you make it. And it's also to, again, craft a graven image to uphold before society, also known as Moloch's machine, the world of death and the game of lies, to the subversion of the creative force of the individual that never lies dormant and is always bringing something new into being. Subverted into creating that image in relation to the strong delusion, the realm itself. So using the realm and society as that barometer and that gauge and that for how to be and what to be. And then attaching to this state, which is not of disorientation. It's the lack of specific negative emotions in the moment. And especially this operates at the level of advertising and marketing. It's right there in the TV show Mad Men, when Donald Draper, the main character, in referring to marketing and advertising, he's an ad man, a purported genius. He says that the purpose of it, the function is to ensure that the individual always feels and believes that whatever they happen to be doing at any given moment is completely and wholly, WHOLLY, appropriate. And thus, there is no internal states of disorientation. Now, Donald Draper, of course, in order to create as an artist these ad campaigns, well, he at times leaned into the disorientation in watching the show. And much of that is puzzling to the viewer. They say, why is he behaving this way? What's wrong with this guy? But then again, Donald Draper, because of his attractiveness, his boldness, his confidence, he was able to do things that seemed quite incongruous. And the people around him either had to tolerate it for their own purposes because of various entanglements, or, just because of what he represented at the level of the graven image upheld before Moloch. There really wasn't the social capital necessary to, in the short term, do anything about Don Draper. undermine him over time. Well, that was happening anyway. By his enemies were always seeking to do that, as he was seeking to do that to his enemies. And that's the adversarial nature of the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. Because make no mistake, to go into a corporate structure, I would assert even to be raised in education in these, which is a corporate structure, well, that introduces the adversarial nature, the jockeying for position, the hierarchies, in groups, out groups, all of these various psychological dynamics. Well, where did the psyche come from? Well, Moloch and Moloch's machine. And now we see the plight of the individual and why so many folks not possessed of Donald Draper's great ambition and Machiavellianism and cunning and, stereotypically strong masculine visage. And then, of course, somewhat counterintuitively, Benson's own identifying even more strongly with the female characters of the show. Isn't that interesting? And I guess I'm not interesting also. Going from 2 listeners to 1 listener live, thank you for being that one to keep us off to 0. Although now that one knows that I'm talking to them, perhaps they will leave, whoever they may be, which is okay. It's all okay. But then in describing Donald Draper in specific ways, captain of the football team type, although he had his own version of fake it till you make it going on. Perhaps they became disoriented and lacking confidence and reminded of their own failures of youth. Said, I got to get out of here. I don't want to hear about Donald Draper. Well instructed. Donald Draper experienced his undoing, did he not? If folks have watched the show. And he eventually came out the other end of that undoing. How? By traveling through the disorientation, aka death, within what? A world of death, via what? A slow process for ourselves to avoid death. So he reframed to experience or embrace or move through death by what? Not being a warrior, wanting to stay at the village, wanting to remain with the teepees, with is the male in society. Hey, they'd rather hang out with the women and the children with the teepees on the riverbank, in the nomadic, the nomadic idea of Native American society, tribalism. So that now we get to manhood as a status, because the men, if they failed to behave in specific ways, could not be treated as men. And now society, the machine, has decided that for its purposes, men or manhood or males will be destroyed. And increasingly, they never leave the teepees, they never leave the women, and they never leave the children. They hang out. And I'm not passing judgment on that, although I am in a way. I'm not condemning that more correctly. That's not a condemnation. It's a recognition of what is happening. And then, of course, to disabuse ourselves of notions of, well, there's going to be a coming together and a reformation and a restoration of society. No, there's not, because that's all external, and none of us has any power individually, externally whatsoever. Meaning, you cannot do anything about normie NPC hordes and their refusal to do what? To self-direct. Why would they need to self-direct? To move through disorientation. Why would they need to move through disorientation? Because it's the only way to grow and evolve and change individually, to rise to a level of creating not a graven image to uphold before Moloch to say, is this good enough in service of industrial and post-industrial society? To internally bootstrap themselves, mind, body, and spirit, to become and just when the cook gets to cooking, the internet signal drops off. Why? Because that's how it works here. You can call it a conspiracy. The entire realm exists as a conspiracy against what I am. That's the accepted and expected spiritual attack. Oh, you think you're going to cook? Think you're going to cook? You think you're going to preach righteously? Well, we got something for your ass, partner. How about a little spiritual attack? You best be ready for that, partner. So rudely interrupted by the internet signal dropping off. Certainly can't trust a cell phone to properly manage a handoff from one cell tower to the next, traveling down an interstate highway. Now, can we? How silly. I believe I was Aussieing and herriting and leave it to beaving. And so, yes, people hearken back to the post-war period and say, well, it wasn't that long ago that there was a proper society. Well, number one, let's apply logic. Would a proper society be capable of degenerating into the present society? And number two, was not, or in conjunction with that idea, is not the current society an offshoot or a growth out of is it not the same progression or regression? Of saying, well, 80 years ago it was seemingly appropriate, or okay, proper society, how is this happening? Is this not the same society? When did it change? What happened? Well, it's the same. And as we see, it's by 1960. And some would say far earlier. My own boomer parents, born in 1955, and birthed into what? Social problems. There it is. What happened in the 50s? Television. That was an acceleration. Certainly would have been an acceleration. And to instruct Moloch's machine learning that, well, these people will do whatever is required. What, maybe it's black and white, maybe it's 13 inches. What did a 13-inch used black and white television cost? Americans earned a so-called living wage repairing such units in 1962. How many hours at the median hourly wage was required for the worker to purchase a television set of such a set? But Moloch's machine learned, well, they will do whatever they have to do to have that TV in the living room when they sit down to dinner with the family. So it used to be, if history's to be believed, well, it used to be what? Family time, seated around the table, looking each other in the face, and having a conversation, and the cleaning of the plate. Right. You ain't getting up till you eat them green beans. Don't you dare go for that dessert before you've had whatever else. Well, now it's all of that and a television and the messages, the direct messaging of Moloch's machine. Moloch says, "Ha ha, here I am in your home, in your living room. I'm Moloch at the dinner table. Who's coming to dinner? Motherfucking Moloch." Pull up a seat, Moloch. Sound like Job chapter 1 to me. Sound like the sons of God coming to present themselves before the Lord. The Lord surveying them and sees antithesis, Moloch. Satan says, "What's happening, partner?" Moloch says, "Oh, you know me. Roaming to and fro, seeking whom I may devour." Well, how about you pull up a chair to the American nuclear family's dinner? How about you pull up a chair? Have you considered my servant Job? Huh. Shit, I never thought about it that way. You're damn right you never thought about it that way. Because it's right there in your face. It's a little too obvious. And that's why, part of the reason why there's no such thing as common sense. There can't be. Because some of these things are a little too close, a little too obvious, a little too foresty for the treesy. Who could be expected to track all of these details? We're all too busy earning a living. Earning a living, what I am is life. What are you talking about? What I am is the way. What I am is the truth. What I am is the life. But Moloch's machine done pulled up a chair to dinner, and now all of a sudden I got to earn a living. What? Well, what about what I am is the way, what I am is truth, what I am is the life, is the life. So now I got to earn what I am. I got to earn my keep. I thought I was here to strut my stuff. I thought I was here to show and prove. Did the men in black show up and wipe my motherfucking memory, Jack? Where's that comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, to teach me all things in the context of delusion and illusion and to bring unto my remembrance? Where's that thing? Oh, well, it entered in many years ago, and then finally, through the unlocking of the achievement within the world of death and the game of lies, a true knowledge of self/self-realization, the being now has had brought to remembrance, oh, buddy, you were born. Came out your mama spiritually perfected, partner, innocent. And certainly would only walk the perfected path that lies within, except corporate and government indoctrination to teach the being how to be, to instruct the being on how to craft that graven image within the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, and to blast the individual with fear, guilt, shame, via mockery and ridicule the moment they begin to deviate even one iota from what society expects from them at the level of performance, aka to earn a living, to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and to be productive by doing what? By making rich people richer every new moment into perpetuity, which is the function of the economy, and it never fails to achieve its purpose. What's up, Carrie? I see you down there. Enjoy your day. Many thanks for the assistance of the past. What goes around comes around. Most certainly. And maybe it's not Miss Carrie receiving direct reciprocal donations from Mr. Benton here, but several random homeless have gotten donations lately. Direct cash infusions. Believe that. And nothing was required for what I am, which in part is love. Love knows nothing of condition. Love knows nothing of requirement, or, well, they need to do this and they need to do that, and then maybe I'll give them a $20 bill. Love don't know what that is. What are you talking about? Huh? That does not compute. But yes, the psyche, the aforementioned psyche, created by antithesis, for antithesis, on behalf of antithesis, in service of antithesis. That's the mechanism that operates all of this. It says, well, silly little human. The silly little human, the NPC normie, starts out where it must be catered to, meaning it must be placated at the level of how it feels inside. It will not choose disorientation within itself. It will not choose discomfort. And Moloch's machine, via those psychological mechanisms, says, okay, well, now the puppet master, the puppet and the strings. Dance, puppet, dance. And so we have the individual that lacks self-direction. That must then what? invert the idea of lacking self-direction. They're dependent upon what? Someone to direct them or something to direct them. Moloch in institutions and phenomena who will step into that breach. Nature abhors a vacuum and say yes. And then when all of that fails, the being can always just look at the nearby humans and begin to mimic them. And imagine the shock and horror of Benton when realizing, oh, look, because no other humans are nearby, one of these NPC normies had sidled up to old Benton and just started doing whatever old Benton is doing in order to avoid even the smallest iota of disorientation. And that's why when Benton woke up and did his little morning routine, and then finally it was nearing the time to pull out of the space at the truck stop, he got out of the truck and he poured out the piss jug into the grass so it won't smell bad later. People might see this in the daytime and say, ooh, gross. No, what's gross is truckers leaving piss bottles all over the place, or can't stand the embarrassment of being seen pouring out their piss jug in the grass, where it would be the least troublesome to society, while the dog takes a piss in the grass all over the motherfucker. So a dog can wander over to the grass and take a leak, but old Benton can't wander over and pour out a piss jug. Okay, makes total sense. But he can hide and pee onto the concrete where the sun will bake it and it's going to stink for hours. It's not going to smell like anything 5 minutes later if it's poured into the ground. And nobody's going to happen upon it later if it's left lying around in a bottle, discarded. And then Benton throws away his bag of trash, and nothing is happening. It's tumbleweed. There's one truck parked at the fuel island. Nothing is going on. Not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. And then Benton boldly strides onto the stage and begins to perform. And now beings who lack self-direction have something to act upon. And slowly but surely, over a short period of time, the environment comes to life. Now big rigs start to move it. Trucks start to pulling up to fuel island. The truck next to me starts his engine. Right about the time I'm starting my engine. Surprise, surprise. But why was Benton first? Because he has no need of others to begin to perform. He is self-directed. Or more correctly, what he is self-directed in the context of delusion and self-existing in the first place, which it doesn't. Only when solving for and reconciling at the level of waking dream surrealistic unreality does such a thing even seemingly exist. Seemingly. How slow do I have to go to get you to pass me there, Bubba? I'm going 62. I was going 68. You're catching me. You're still there. Oh, but we're going to get a ticket. We're not speeding, sir. How are we going to get tickets when we're not speeding? Well, it's Louisiana. It's 2:15 a.m. They're drunk. Fair enough. How slow must I go to not create this herd or this group? And they will experience less disorientation, less discomfort if they can hang out in a group. Anything to avoid being that one bold actor performing on stage under a spotlight. Anything. Anything up to and including abject slavery. Better to be a slave than to boldly deliver a solo performance on stage, which is the definition in a way of what I am, a solo performance. Because it can't be divided, it's an indivisible force. It's always expanding, always creating, always performing, always bringing something new into existence. In fact, it is existence and all potentials for existence, thus containing the potential lack of existence, or at least what may be plausibly passed off as a lack of existence, which isn't even possible. How can one be a philosopher when the starting point for philosophy is, well, solipsism can't ever be valid, neither can nihilism. And the sharp sword goeth out of Benton's mouth, known as the Word of God, and says, well, correct philosophy is the absence of incorrect philosophy. So how can the being begin by saying, well, there can't be solipsism and there can't be nihilism? Why would I accept a preconceived notion of correct philosophy without doing my own validating or invalidating? How can the being practice the true aphorism and tenet that correct philosophy is the absence of incorrect philosophy? And here's the realm which trades on inversion, saying, well, here's your starting point for philosophy. Solipsism is dead and nihilism is dead. Well, philosophy's dead in the context of this realm because the realm is dead. Why is what I am told to begin with dead forms of philosophy? Because if what is correct philosophy? Philosophy that can be lived. You're telling me that I can't live based on an idea that there can't be external meaning? What are you talking about? What I am is the way, what I am is the truth, what I am is the life. And then, so now I'm that's on the other side of me. Well, now we've separated worshiper from object of worship. And who or what does that serve? Well, now there can't be a resurrection of the risen Christ within, because the resurrection of the risen Christ within, that's worshiper and object of worship contained within the same space, within the delusion of time, space, location, place, to then move beyond and move through the underworld of disorientation, the underworld of death. This underworld remember when the hero used to be the underdog? Now the hero is the anti-hero. That's society or worshipers. Give us Barabbas. Don't give us Underdog the cartoon. Superhero. Give us Vic Mackey. From The Shield, one of my favorite TV shows. Give us Vic Mackey. Give us Barabbas. Don't give us Underdog Christ, the ultimate underdog. Don't resurrect that within the individual. Don't do that. What levels of disorientation did Christ's dead flesh go through? Right? What did Christ choose to accept, and what did Christ expect at the level of spiritual attack, persecution, and all of this? Right? Meanwhile, Benton shopping for hoodies at Walmart yesterday on his restart. Actually got to take his time shopping. And here's Jesus hoodies. Something about talking about the pleasure of serving Christ. And Benton standing there going, well, what about in the book of John when Jesus is quoted in the Bible as saying, I don't call you servant, I call you friend. Thus acknowledging the progression of the individual through the underworld of disorientation, death itself. That's this place, the valley of the shadow of death. And it's the delusion of time, space, location, place. This is the underworld, motherfucker. So when Jesus, in the context of the story, traveled the underworld after defeating this world of death and game of lies, was that not to move through as a being fully identified with the life? But then what's the world of death? Well, the death would be those beings, probably zombies from the music video Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller. They knew they were zombies. They knew they were playing their position. Is that the idea of the underworld? Is okay, now it's death without the pretense. Now it's death without the delusion. Now it's the lowest forms of death, which are what? As above, so below, as below, so above. Now that's the highest forms of death. All they that hate what I am love death. So what would the underworld be? Well, that's the people who, or the beings or the entities that say, come on in, the water's fine. And Christ, having proven victory over that, was free to, okay, swim through those waters. Backstroke through them waters. Hey, look, there's the Lord. There goes the Lord. What's he doing down here? Right? It's like doing a backstroke. Huh. I'll be. Then returning to what? This realm of delusion. Right? Where the lovers of death are so strongly identified with the delusion and the illusion, the realm itself, that they don't understand. They lack the knowledge that they're behaving as zombies from Michael Jackson's Thriller video. And then Christ showing himself publicly and then ascending to the heavens. Running the gamut. He ran the gamut. So if this is some form of a hell realm or a middle ground, actually more correctly a heaven or hell realm, because based on the example of Christ, this place the being can go to the so-called underworld from here, and the being can go to the so-called heavenlies from here. Is this a crossroads then? Is this a crossroads? In a way, I suppose it is. So the facilitation of the risen Christ within, the resurrection of the risen Christ within, that's the being who can, as above, so below this motherfucker. Can go all the way to the bottom, do a backstroke through, whatever, Egyptology, Ra, and fucking the boat, and that Eye of Horus and all that stuff, right? And the passage, and, the paying the toll to go across the Euphrates or whatever the fuck it was. I don't know. I don't remember all of it. Does it even matter? Not really. But whatever all that is, I mean, that's what I'm taking to be the underworld. At least, based on having this so-called human experience. So that's the Christ story, or part of the Christ story is equally at home everywhere, whether it's the underworld, this delusory realm, or the heavenly. That's a Trinity: Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Underworld, crossroads of strong delusion, in the heavenlies, as above, so below. What about that middle ground? Well, that's, pick your poison, right? Pick your poison. Which way you gonna go? And humanity trying to play the middle. Why? 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 To remain what? Between stasis and anti-stasis? Because lacking the ability to courageously stride on the stage and perform. Meanwhile, Satan strutting his stuff. Job chapter 1, but in a deceptive, them traveling through delusion to present themselves before the Lord, right? Satan also came in their midst. Satan boldly striding around, strutting his stuff, waiting like the NPC normal. What's happening is this: the road is so destroyed, the egg drink now spills out of the top of the travel mug onto, because this is the richest country that's ever existed. So that's why the being cannot drink its hot drink out of a travel mug, because it's the richest country ever. Strong delusion has ever been in all of history. Solely based when and where it was born. Don't you get it? It's right there. It's telling you what it is. Strong delusion. And the being will sign itself up happily to a never-ending series of strong delusion. Of course it will. Anything to. So to stay in that middle ground and to never choose heaven or hell, to never make the tree good or make the tree rotten. See? And so when so-called air quotes God says, "Have you considered my servant Job?" What is that? As Benton now, as if he's riding a bunking bronco, puts his left hand on the steering wheel to steady himself and holds his other hand containing the hot drink in the air to keep even more liquid from spilling out, because it's the richest country that's ever existed. So this must be the greatest possible interstate highway that's ever existed. It has to be. Hopefully you detect the sarcasm. If not, not my problem. So if the being remains in a state of suspended animation through the subversion of their creative force that never lies dormant, through a computer simulation, or at least a delusion with elements of simulation, well, that's the same as making the tree rotten. Because to refuse or to fail to, the creative force doesn't make the tree good, and the good tree defined as one that brings forth the good fruit. Now Satan wins. Now antithesis gets to pause the game and say, well, actually, sir, actually, judge, actually, law, actually, court. Turns out that what we thought was supreme authority, what we thought was creative expansion, is no such thing. And now the dark age has defeated. It started out as a golden age, perhaps. Look what it's degenerated into. And would a proper golden age, would a proper supreme authority, would a proper creative force ever allow this to happen? That's the legal argument. That's the persuasion of the prosecutor. And the prosecutor, Satan, knows that the game will reset at a certain point. The time is limited within the context of delusion, time, space, location, place. Because in order to facilitate the competition, Satan or antithesis would have had to agree to that in the first place. Because without delusion, antithesis doesn't have the space to work and operate. Antithesis can only operate within the context of time, space, location, place. Delusion, because what I am can never actually experience death, dishonor, destruction, death. Did I already say death? Fear, guilt, shame, anxiety, depression, all so-called negative states of being, which are all dead. Dead, dead, dead. Anxiety is dead. Fear is dead. Guilt is dead. Shame is dead. It doesn't exist. The inability. So the have you considered my servant Job? That's a, hey, Moloch, pull up a seat to the dinner table because what I am cannot conceptualize the calamities that may befall the nuclear family as a result. And Moloch says, well, hey, I'll come on in. The water's fine because Moloch came up with nuclear family, not society did not grow and change and evolve and progress and say, okay, this is better. Ozzie and Harriet, leave it to Beaver, a job at the factory, the milkman earning a living wage. That's all corporate. You want to talk about truthers, conspiracy theorists? Oh, corporation, corpse, death. Yeah, the milkman's living wage is corpus, it's death. It's not a progression, it's a regression, bozos. It's not a progression, it's a regression, bozos. That's dead. The milkman was dead, as dead as anything else. A zombie in Michael Jackson's Thriller video. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. How many people were earning a living wage as milkmen when that video dropped? Somewhere in the U.S. Was somebody still clinging to the idea of this is what they do for a living and raising their families? Mama staying at home with children. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. So all roads lead to the disorientation within the individual to facilitate the resurrection of the risen Christ within. That is the Christ story. That is the Christ story. To sign oneself up to a systematic program of spiritual attack and to accept it and to expect it. And when the being seeks comfort, the comforter says, hey, you saw what they done to the Lord. What do you think they're going to do to you, partner? Did you not go to Wally World? Did you see the hoodie down at Wally World? Talking about the glory and how pleasurable it is to serve the Lord, to serve Jesus. Well, this is what's required to get to that level of no longer being servant, but now being friend. You got a friend in Jesus. Sure. If the being can boldly stride out onto the stage under the spotlight in front of everybody and perform a solo, never a team, never a chorus behind, or never in a chorus line, never with backing vocals, never with an orchestra or a band. Solo. A cappella. That's called courage. And here comes mockery, ridicule. The peanut gallery mocks and ridicule. What have we seen with Benton? We've seen a peanut gallery of mockers and ridicule, half of which clothe themselves in Christianity, Jesus, and all of these things. They make claims while hurling tomatoes at Vincent. Well, Jesus or Christ says, hey, you saw what they done to me. What do you think they're going to do to you, partner? Exactly. Now I see a perverse form of that, which is Aaron M. Holt of Steel Toe Morning Show, who had a short-lived victory over his peanut gallery that follows him wherever he goes metaphorically. And Aaron M. Holt cannot see or chooses not to see that no matter what he does, the peanut gallery will mock and ridicule and throw tomatoes at him. So what they did when he delivered his performance in the context of them temporarily be showing themselves foolish and him gloating and claiming victory, is they went on to their weekly show called This Little Piggy, and Aaron M. Holt is the piggy, and they played Aaron M. Holt describing his victory, and they mocked it and they ridiculed it and they threw tomatoes at it, because no matter what Aaron M. Holt does, that's what the peanut gallery does, and he can't figure it out because of his own mental illness, because of his own psyche, because of his own refusal to internally bootstrap mind, body, and spirit, his own lack of what? Self-direction. But doing it in a different way that looks to be self-directed. It's not, it's slavery. It's a psychological slavery. And in fact, it's quite similar to some of old Benton's past psychological slavery. Some of my own psychological slavery was of the lol-cow variety. And we've even seen it in the so-called truth community, where at a certain point, Benton just realized, well, wait a minute, no matter what I do, these bozos are going to mock and ridicule me. And these are my friends. They're going to, my so-called internet friends, no matter what I do, they mock and ridicule because they're of this world. Of course they do. They're of this world. It's all they know is this world. They don't know anything else. They know death. They know mockery. They know ridicule. They give birth to mockery. They give life to ridicule. That's all they know how to do. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. It's my basis for empathy towards them. They're infested with demons. Well, Benton used to be infested with demons. Benton got them, he shook them demons up off of him. Why? How? See. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Why and how? So who is the one who's offered up into the hands of the enemy, and who represents the enemy in that context? And this is where we get into certain notions, Buddhism and all of this around being grateful for one's enemies. Well, that only goes so far. Yeah, sure, until the being rises to a level within themselves to no longer need the enemy to make progress. What do you mean by progress? Internal bootstrapping, mind, body, and spirit. Well, we no longer need the enemy to come against us. Now it's on behalf of antithesis. Now it's antithesis saying, lovers of death, mount up and ride against Benton. Let's form a weapon and see if it prospers. Oh well, that one didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board and see what else we can come up with. And on and on and on and on until the game resets. And then here come the golden age. And they might say to Benton, in a thought experiment, in an imagination, in a fantasy, hey, Benton, how about this golden age? Yeah, man, sure. But Benton is just as indifferent at that point to the golden age as he was to the underworld or the middle ground or the crossroads. Yeah, I could take it or leave it. Just like that crossroads, that delusory middle ground, I can take it or leave it. That underworld, yeah, I can take it or leave it. That's the Christ story. Unchanged by the golden age, unchanged by the strong delusion of the crossroads or the middle ground, unchanged by the underworld. Now we're in a gigantic group of vehicles because one person was driving to avoid a DUI, which is fair enough. Understood. And then so to accept and expect that because it's 2:30 in the morning, whatever time it is. That's what happens at 2:30 or 3 a.m. So now how to defeat the group of vehicles catching up? Well, we have to go even slower than we were already going, and we were only going slow because one person in a pickup truck was driving to avoid a DUI. So now the ripple effect is we drive at between 50 and 55 miles an hour. And part of this is that group of vehicles, they want to push somebody out in front. They want to push somebody out in front to boldly stride onto the stage and let him take the slings and arrows. There might be danger up ahead. Let's push him out there. And if there's danger, he'll be sacrificed. But he knows what's going on, so he says, I'll just go 45 with the flashers on and let y'all figure it out. I'm doing bigger and better and more important things. Y'all are the ones trying to get into a slow driving contest with me. For what? How about you leave me alone? Because I got all day. And we've now successfully socially engineered the people around it. The royal we, of course. I mean, now we can at least get somewhere near the speed limit. Maybe. driving this early in the morning and then being in a big group of vehicles. That's asinine, ass 10, ass 11. Why would I do that? It's crazy. And now we're having to slow down again because this truck in front of me is not self-directed. So the one faster moving truck pulled him along past me, but because he's not self-directed, now that truck has outran him. So now he's trying to go slow enough that I'll catch up to him. Because anything to avoid being self-directed, even if I'm behind him, he can still psychologically say, well, that fella back there's in charge. Maybe I can maneuver him to get in front of me at some point and follow behind yet again. And, it reminds me of the last couple of years of my second marriage. And some of this is the influence of the more overt feminism of the West Coast that my second wife growing up on an exposed. Only the more covert forms of feminism, not the overt, the earlier forms. And this, by the way, this is the predatory nature. Because now a car's caught us, and they want to ride right behind us to hide out from the authority because they're guilty, right? They're guilty. Fear, guilt, shame, mockery, ridicule. They're guilty. See. So they want to ride the bumper of the trailer if possible to hide. The opposite of boldly. But how did they catch me? They're going faster than I am. So why can't I get them away from me? Because they will do anything to avoid self-direction. Anything. Doesn't matter what it is. And they don't understand this. If they knew this, they would have something to work with. They don't know. Forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And now every vehicle on the road is going to catch us because it's been 20 minutes and we can't get back up to speed. It's now 70 mile an hour zone. We can't get back up to full speed because of this. Unless we want to ride in a gigantic group of vehicles at 3 in the morning, which is the opposite of safety, lest we forget. That's the opposite of safety. We'll just go 58. It's fine. Eventually, the road will open up again. Eventually. And this is representative of spiritual attack itself. Of course it says, how could it be any other way? So back to ex-wife number 2, she got to where, especially if we were walking somewhere, she'd try to walk in front of me, right? Well, if we look at other cultures, you look at the Japanese and many other cultures, the last thing you're going to see, when you see a couple, you're never going to see that. If you see a man following behind a woman, something's gone very, very wrong. It's so rare it almost doesn't exist. And she got to where she was trying to walk a half a step ahead of me, and there'd be times I'd just stop, and she would end up 10 paces ahead, and she would get confused and say, "Where did Benton go?" And I'd just be back there looking at her like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she'd have to walk back to me, and then she'd kind of remember, "Oh, that's right. He leads me around. I don't lead him around." They say, "Oh, it's supposed to be equal." It's never equal, folks. Somebody's in charge no matter what. It's just how it works. I don't make the Benton didn't make the rules. And so eventually, seeing that, well, this is clearly, there's going to be a, whether we or not we remain in each other's lives, I'm getting the fuck away from this broad. I'm only willing to tolerate a certain amount of that behavior. Because to take on too much more of it, at some point it's like, okay, now the man's beginning to lose status, his manhood, which is a status. And you can apply stoicism to all that all you want. That ain't what stoicism is. Oh, what? Just to remain unchanged? And what? To then just be led around by a woman? Right? To bow down to something lower than oneself? They say, what do you mean? Well, I'm talking about leadership. That's what I'm talking about. Now we're back to tribalism, the women and the children hanging out at the village and the teepees, the men off, hunting and doing whatever needed to be done. That's what I'm talking about. Although somewhat proving these people's points, somebody's gotten pulled over by the Louisiana State Police, most likely up here. So, fair enough. So hilariously, I observed that she would hurry me up and seek to walk a half a step in front of me. But then I began to notice if I allowed her to do that, anytime we were about to enter into a building or go through a doorway or enter into a new environment, oh, that's actually a wreck, a gigantic, horrible, cataclysmic wreck. Somebody's rolled their truck over and had a horrible wreck and crashed into some trees. That was a bad one. And now everybody's going to go slow for the next 10 minutes. So just when I thought I was going to get up to 68 miles an hour, I think we kissed 67. Slow it back down. Slow it back down. Because now we got to go through 10 minutes of people pretending they've been prudent drivers when they're not. And after 10 minutes, then it'll be okay to going back to driving normally. But we got to do our 10 minutes of oh my goshing, and I hope they're okay. I don't know, man. Based on the looks of that pickup, I'm going to go ahead and guess they're not okay. Probably were ejected from the vehicle. They're probably the authorities are probably looking for them right now. Did I fail to bring the water up front? I think I did. Wow, what a fail. How silly of me. Just when I thought I was on top of things today. Where's the water? So what I started doing, so what she would do is, right before we would enter into a new environment, she would drag her heels, which would then propel me forward. So I got to where I would just hang back and force her to boldly enter the environment first. It was like, hey, lady, if you're in charge all the way, bitch. And then just the look on her face of confusion and disorientation. And it always confused me a little bit why the man opens the door and the woman goes in first. It's like, that's kind of strange, because isn't that like the least safe way to do that? And it does remind me of the only time I've ever been jumped in my whole life. And without telling the entire story, it involved ex-wife number one and some of her treachery, the treachery of a woman. And not to blame or insult women, but the treachery of a woman, and or the human, as it may be. And Benton, being quite strategic and reactive, opened a door and detected danger lurking just outside the door of the domicile. But the problem was I had opened the door for her and she went out into the danger first. Thus, I lost the advantage of potentially surprising those who thought they were going to surprise me because they didn't know when I would be opening the door. I didn't know that they were out there, but I actually, because they weren't that vigilant, I had an opportunity to seize the upper hand. But there's my woman out in front of me. It's like, well, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on. I can't just necessarily start doing shit because I'm going to have to see what danger is she in before it. I have to protect her first, right? That's the code. Now, how much of that's bullshit? What did Genghis Khan do? That's not what he done. He ran off and let the banditos have his wife and child. Because I guess he figured out, well, he could always just get another wife and make another child. So what's the difference? That's what people missed in The Usual Suspects. Kaiser Soze, they talked about part of the myth of Kaiser Soze was these, a warring faction of criminals, captured or was on the brink of capturing and threatening Kaiser Soze's family, and basically like, hey, if you don't do what we want, we're going to kill your family. And in the story, in the mythology, Kaiser Soze killed his own family. And in the story, they said, and showed men of will what true will really was. Right. And then part of Benton tingled and said, ooh, I like that. Ooh. Ooh. And that is the quickening spirit in a way. Now, it's a fictionalized, sort of bastardized version, but it's the same thing. No weapon formed shall prosper. Dick Gregory told a story where Napoleon's recruiter was, between wars or between battles, was out looking for soldiers and found this old lumberjack. The guy was just the greatest physical specimen the recruiter had ever seen. And the recruiter went, started talking to the old man. He turned out to be 90 years old. Guy said, okay, well, now you belong to Napoleon's army. And the old man said, well, I don't kill. I chop my wood. I pay my taxes. It's also this idea that the system ain't never going to leave anybody alone. And so eventually, the guy's like, you don't understand. I don't kill. And eventually, the recruiter is basically like, tells the men to seize the lumberjack, and they're going to brand him, or they do brand him. They physically seize him and they brand him with a mark that says, now you belong to Napoleon's army. The guy unsheathes his axe, chops his fucking hand off, says, you didn't hear me. I don't kill. Right. And then in the story, they say the recruiter went crazy, and then he was, also one of the generals, left Napoleon's flank, exposed, and Napoleon was defeated in battle or whatever. Now, whether or not any of that ever happened, who knows? That's God. That's air quote so-called God, right? Oh, you gonna tell me, motherfucker? I'm finna tell you, buddy. Finna tell you, buddy. The flesh is dead anyway. Oh, you done put the mark of death on the dead flesh? Well, let me show you what's going on here, buddy. Shing! It's the word of God. That's God's law. Oh, you think you in charge? All right, bitch, go be in charge. Oh, you think you're in charge? You think you can make a slave out of that, out of what I am? Go for it. Have you considered my servant Job? Shing. Because what I am will chop off its own hand before it will be a slave. Because it can't be a slave. It's not possible. This realm is all about convincing blessing to behave as if it were cursed. So that curse can supplant or usurp thesis, proposition, life, authority, creation. That's what this place is. This is that middle ground. And from here, the perfected being can either ascend to the heavenlies or go down to the underworld. That is your as above, so below. Either way, you got the lovers of death, fully identified with death and the lowest forms of vibrational energy possible down there in the underworld, looking up one day and they say, is that the Lord? What's he doing down here? I don't know. It looks like he's doing the backstroke down the fucking River Euphrates or whatever it is. I'm sure I'm getting some of those details wrong. What's the difference? We're speaking English, motherfucker. What better sign do you need? What better symbol of how lost that this is a place of confusion, a realm of delusion, that this is to be here and to be identified with this place is to be lost, land of the lost, man. That's what this is. Act accordingly. Because the individual is performing, regardless of how they feel, they're still performing. They might believe they're in a herd. They might believe they're in the chorus. They might believe that they're just, next to last chair flutist or whatever, meekly hiding out in the orchestra. Well, make no mistake, it's a wholly individual experience spiritually. It's the context. It's in the context that it's even possible to individuate and break off a little chunk of an indivisible force. No, it's not. It's symbolically representative of the thing itself, regardless of what the being believes or chooses to believe or allows themselves to be convinced of. It doesn't matter. And then eventually they end up not necessarily in the underworld, but they end up never ascending to the heavenly, never returning to source, never fully finding their way back to their home. Then the simulation resets and you try again. Try again. Try again. And we got a slow driving contest going on back here, so bear with me. I think their adaptive cruise controls probably caught me. And they don't know what to do. See how long we can go 45 with the flashers on until they figure it out. They got down to 50 and they figured it out. Yeah, sorry, buddy, you don't get to hang out behind me. Sorry about your luck. You have to find somebody else to hitchhike, pick you up hitchhiking. No hitchhikers. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I don't know, man. If we're going to spiritually attack, can we be accurate in the chat? Because I've never been a father of any kind, so I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, that's DWS. Sorry, man, I didn't see your name down there. No, I've never had any stepchildren. I've never had any children. Ex-wife number 2 had a 10-year-old when we got together, and his father lived in the same town, and he lived with us 1 week and then lived with the father 1 week. And in my culture, which was the same culture as this boy, I never would have accepted another man as my father. So I was more like a uncle in a way. But every once in a while, somebody would refer to him as my stepson. I'd say, I don't have any kids. That's his dad lives across town. I don't know what to tell you. And it does kind of show you, and nothing against DWS, good to see you. It does show how society, has in fact, for its own purposes, has used this, the whole raising of another man's kid, right? Born out of what? The idea of the nuclear family, which that probably wasn't appropriate, because then you have women all competing for Chad, but if you look at the more Native American structure and the, not attaching sexuality to morality necessarily, although probably in some contexts. So probably once the young girl began to menstruate, then she assumed probably was fair game in a way. I'm assuming, don't know, wasn't there. But then, would it be known who provided the, who the father who was? We know who the mother is. And that's sort of an interesting thing about society. We know who the mother is in almost all cases. Who the father is may be unclear. Isn't that interesting? But yes, there's Benton never gets to take credit for or be blamed for, anything involving children. Although at a certain point, ex-wife number 2 attempted to blame me for her son claiming to be an atheist. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I believe in God. And this was years ago. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I believe in God. I said, all I did was encourage him to think for himself. You can't blame me for him thinking for himself and deciding he's an atheist. How is that my problem? What are you talking about? Not my fault. The church is such a disaster. Turned him off, and I helped him. Meanwhile, ex-wife number 2 was raised in a church. It's not like she practiced any of that as an adult. What's the fucking difference? The only thing I know about fatherhood or potential fatherhood is that I'm Benton. Benton's dead flesh comes from a bloodline, and Benton is the only one in his nuclear family that can still make a Benton. Because both my sisters have children, and only one of them made a boy. And in this inverted world, it's all about making a boy to carry on the family name. And I'm a bit of a black sheep and an outcast. Meanwhile, I'm the only one. Well, actually, that's not even true. My father could probably still make a Benton. He won't, because he will only date women his own age. But I guess technically he could. I'm sure that some of these gals are trying to get some of that stuff up in them, which is how it works. Yeah, I never had any interest in other than the physical act itself. I never had any interest in making offspring, or certainly not in raising any. And that's again the being, you know, every man hath not the same office. So I might see somebody state, well, clearly our purpose is to, you know, based on the Bible saying multiply and be fruitful. Well, then people will extrapolate and say that means the being's purpose is to have offspring and raise them, in a godly fashion. And then I'll just go to a part of the Bible that says every man hath not the same office, which means not everybody has the same purpose or function. So, and within the context of a holy individual spiritual experience, why would I allow others to dictate to me what my purpose is? That's crazy. That would be error and folly. That's nuts. It's crazy. Now, that just like it would be crazy for me to try to tell other people, why would you want to bring new people to this hell realm? Well, it's a heaven or hell realm. That's why. Because maybe their offspring will experience the more heavenly aspects, perhaps. No, I don't know. It's none of my concern. America doesn't need anything. And so this is America needs its taxpayers. Yeah, in this inverted realm. Well, of course, because that's the animated death warmed over. The realm has to be perpetuated through the subversion of the creative force because it can't itself. So when people look around at America and economy and the dollar and say this is unsustainable, yes, and the system understands that. What is sustainable is the creative force, the aggregated creative force of the individuals that comprise the mass. That is sustainable. It's a perpetual motion machine. Antithesis understands this. So when somebody looks at America and society and says this is not sustainable, I say, well, you don't know what you're looking at if you think this is unsustainable, because the system maintains itself at a level of unsustainability or collapse, and it does it through subverting what I am. As Benton travels from slow driving contest to slow driving contest. Because I'll go however slow I got to go to get these bozos up off me. Because at some point I'm going to be racing a motherfucking clock and I won't have any choice. But then it'll be daytime and they'll probably be hurrying off somewhere. And meanwhile, how is this traffic catching up to me? Because its average speed is faster than my average speed. But as soon as they encounter me, oh, we'll hang out here at a lower speed. Yes, here's our bold performer. Here's our strider of stagers. Strider of stages. Here he is. Here's our catalyst. Here's our strong personality to act upon. Here's our leader. Here he is. Here's the alpha. It's like, wait a minute, not me. What are you talking about? Because anybody who understands that hierarchy will say, well, that's only true until the bigger alpha comes along. Like, what are you talking about? That's why the people who call somebody beta don't understand what they're talking about. That's all situational. Beta is not bad. Beta is the alpha sometimes. So actually what we're talking about is alpha, beta, and then all sorts of gradations below that are never discussed. Right. Well, and that's what's interesting, referencing people who make children and talking about Drew World Order. The reality is my father's accomplishment is that he made me. That's it. That's all he's done in his life. He made me. My grandfather made my father. My father made me. And in the context of this bloodline, my grandfather, had what society has decided is the greatest accomplishment. And meanwhile, what Benton has accomplished is far beyond at least what we know of my grandfather's accomplishments. I don't know. Maybe he achieved beyond what he achieved in family life and sports and professionally. I don't know. Spiritually, I'm unaware of what he may or may not have achieved spiritually. But my grandfather, just below the Hall of Fame level in the NFL, just below, but Benton already assures his place in the spiritual Hall of Fame by unlocking the achievement of true knowledge of self within the context of the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. So what did my father do? He made a son that achieved what I would assert is the highest possible attainment in this so-called life. More correctly, this slow process of death. He made me. And thus, whether he realizes it or not, that's can be viewed as a magnification of himself, except hilariously, perhaps his son achieved in ways that society can never and will never actually acknowledge, because society itself makes an enemy of what Benton is, what his son is. And the victory over this realm is to fully know and to fully inhabit and to bring forth the fruit of what I am. And that's exactly what's happening here. And nobody, no thing, no enemy, no delusion, no world can make that not be reality. There's nothing anyone or anything can do to make that not true. And nobody can change it. They say, well, you could change it, but well, I mean, I don't know. Can I? How do you know? Now beings that have never achieved and attained the level of Benton are going to tell Benton what Benton can do? That doesn't seem appropriate. How's that ever going to be a thing? Oh, well, we just thought you might. Well, okay, you thought. Why would I? What concern? Why would I be concerned with what you thought? That doesn't compute. What are you talking about? What you think? I ain't here because of what you think. If I was concerned about what y'all thought, this never would have happened in the first place. The unlocking of the achievement never would have happened if the primary concern was the thoughts and feelings and reactions of others. That's what keeps it all from happening in the first place, or part of what keeps it all from happening in the first place. And so I think what's most constructive is, and it's again, it's back to the example of Christ. It's the Christ as the runner of the world's first 4-minute mile. What we see is that the vast majority of all humans, in observing the first 4-minute mile, a few people say, okay, now we know it's possible for us to run a 4-minute mile, and they go out and run a 4-minute mile. 99, and this is just amongst runners. Most runners say, well, yeah, but they don't then set out to run a 4-minute mile. And so a person observes and comments on Benton's achievement, but then does not take up that mantle. And Benton says, well, what's, from Benton's perspective, the spirit of the being that does, run, maybe the runner of the second, right, 4-minute mile, can't relate to the person who doesn't, go out there and seek to achieve, but accepts the every man hath not the same office. Christ, perhaps, Jesus, perhaps, was not the only being, that had the potential to express in that way. Perhaps, I'm speculating, right? Unclear. Unclear. But see, there's no team. There's no, oh, let's jump on the back and ride. Let's jump on that horse and ride. That's not a thing. And this traffic is a great metaphor. It's just been nothing but me looking in the mirror, and here comes yet more cars seeking to jump on my back and ride. It's like, no, man, absolutely not. It don't work that way. Nope. And then again, why doesn't the observer of the second 4-minute mile, especially if that person is willing to accept that Christ ran the first 4-minute mile, well, the most likely thing to do is say, well, but did Benton actually, did he actually run a 4-minute mile? Maybe part of the way. What about all these other times when he seemingly didn't run the 4-minute mile? I don't know. What about it? What does that have to do with with the other individual's potential to run a 4-minute mile? It's not a team. It's not a team of people running a 4-minute mile. Well, that's the being recognizing and acknowledging that they are not going to push through disorientation and discomfort. So they're only ever going to be in the context of a team, period. That's what they're going to do. Because, like this truck that's decided to follow me, they might realize, oh, wait a minute, we've been following this truck that's going so slow because he's looking for somewhere to pull over and take a piss. And probably there's been a wreck up ahead based on how these two troopers are driving, or somebody's been murdered, one of the two. Who's to say? Well, in Epstein, that's a choose your bread and circus. You know, you get to choose your bread and circus. So if you choose the Epstein as your bread and circus, that's your choice, right? I would say the only error is in failing to recognize that Epstein is a bread and circus, and of what value to the individual spiritually is there to engage in a bread and a circus? What is the benefit? Well, the benefit is that's the group. Now you can be in a group of people who are all engaging in a bread and a circus called Jeffrey Epstein. And the system will always provide you with a selection of breads and circuses. Always. It's what it does, among other things. And now you get to be in a group of people engaged in a bread and circus, doing anything to avoid dealing with and reconciling and resolving whatever has to be resolved if the being is ever going to uncover the perfected path that may lie within. Because there's no guarantee that it's even there. There's simply no guarantee. Meanwhile, if the people did manage to somehow come together long enough to resolve whatever issues may be presented by Jeffrey Epstein, the system will just provide a different bread and circus. So what's the difference? Doesn't matter. Irrelevant. Jeffrey Epstein as a phenomenon is just irrelevant. There's no relevance to that from the perspective of what I am. Doesn't matter. Makes no difference. Because, and what's implied is that, well, if this gets resolved or fixed to where politicians and society will no longer be capable of performing in this way, then maybe we can go back, maybe we, meaning society, can go back to pretending like there's a possibility of proper society, and there won't be a possibility of a proper society because the individuals still will not have risen, they still will not have pulled themselves up by their internal bootstraps, mind, body, and spirit. So the condition of the people will remain the same, while they get to trick themselves into thinking that, well, actually, look at what we did. It's like, well, except you didn't, because now there's something different to replace the Jeffrey Epstein bread and circus. So what's the fucking difference? Again, there is no difference. Doesn't matter. And Moloch's machine gets to say, well, look at you. You ain't, y'all know you ain't shit. You can't have an America strutting its stuff, claiming to be the greatest country of all time with this going on. So it's actually, it's rubbing, it's like the it's like the slave master is just rubbing it in he's rubbing the slave's nose in what they are. Just saying, well, you think you're something else? Let me remind you of what you are, America. Have you forgotten what you are? Yeah, we understand the propaganda. We understand we've told you a certain thing. But here, let us show you what you are. See. Oh, but wait a minute. We'll just point and laugh at Biden's poopy diaper, so everything's okay. See. See, the system provides a convenient means. The system itself says, okay, well, don't worry, because, you know, you can just point at another group and laugh at them. So everything's fine. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Except they won't be forgiven for that, because forgiveness is conditional. Right. Now, how can that be? Well, have you considered my servant Job? Which is like, if he doesn't bring forth the good fruit, then fuck him. We never needed him in the first place. We never knew him. We never needed him. Fuck him. Who cares? What I am is forgiveness. Well, and as far as what is going on in the chat, as far as Epstein, what I'm talking about is, what can the individual do with that information? That's what I'm saying, because now I'm going to bring everything back to effectiveness in the real world. What can be done based on this knowledge, other than having a conversation, which is just basically, at a certain point, it's just sewing circle gossip, more or less. Which is fine. You know, I enjoy sewing circle gossip to some extent. That's entertainment. Entertainment. Oh, I still didn't get the water. That's hilarious. Went back there, did what I needed to do, and still didn't get the water. What a bozo. What a bozo. Hmm. You know, one of the last things Dick Gregory said before he died, and this is not why he died. I mean, he was like 85. But one of the last things he said before he died was that Trump is gay. And Dick Gregory established a long track record of saying some true shit way ahead of time. And I'm going to tell you this. As a man and a lover of women and an appreciator of beauty, Melania ain't no looker. That is not. She's pretty in the way that Tiger Woods' wife is pretty. If you saw her walking down the street in just normal makeup and normal clothes, you wouldn't look at her twice. Except I think Melania is tall, right? You wouldn't think, oh my God, look at that sexy, gorgeous, beautiful woman. You wouldn't look at her twice. Same thing with Tiger Woods' wife. Yeah, there's a part of your brain that understands that, genetically and all of this, there's some, and that's assuming that these are even biological women. But, if I'm going to go along with that premise, sorry, would not get your attention on the street as just a civilian. Promise you. You would walk right past that Elin Woods broad. Wouldn't give her a second thought. Now, a man that's a horn dog will, but he's checking out all the women. But then everybody's got to pretend like Melania is some stunner. She's not. She never was. She's not. Looks like a gay man's beard to me. I'd only heard about Charlie Kirk. First time I looked at him, I said his eyes are too close together. He's probably gay. First thing I thought, probably a gay dude. I listened to a channel. I found a video of this woman, Gen Z chick, told her story of she'd married some guy and turned out to be a total nightmare, abusive, and all of this. But as she's a really good storyteller. So as she's telling the story, she's telling something about him, and it turned out as she's describing some of his behavior, I said, "Oh, it's a gay guy." It turned out that his previous girlfriend was a dude. I said, "I knew it. I could tell just by the way she was telling the story at a certain point. Oh, this is a gay guy, 100%." Now you got Arkansas and that Tom Cotton. That's the most obviously gay man I've ever seen in my life. You could just talk to Tom Cotton and say, "Well, you're gay." He's gay. It's a gay guy. Charlie Kirk, most likely a homosexual. Most likely. It's what it is, man. And I'll tell you something, a lot of people don't understand growing up with a gay best friend, but in a culture where people weren't allowed to be gay. A lot of women found him attractive. Now, he wasn't interested in girls whatsoever, but if he wanted to have a girlfriend, he would have had a girlfriend. No problem. And I mean no problem whatsoever. That's one thing about these gay dudes. It's not like they can't get a girlfriend. A lot of them, they're just not interested. Most of them. Most gay guys actually don't really like women at all. That's kind of something that's not understood because it all gets lumped into LGBT. They really don't like each other. Lesbians and gay dudes don't like each other a lot of the times. A lot of gay dudes just straight up don't like women. Like, oh, I've always loved women. I don't know why. From an early age. Probably because they always kind of liked me. And I don't mean like wanted to date me. I just mean we always got along. Cabbage Patch Doll. That's right. Then they're fucking exactly. And see, that's another thing with the facial symmetry. That's one factor in attractiveness. So this is part of the reason I talk about how in the past my looks weren't really that much of a thing. Is because yeah, debatably I'm somewhat good looking. I don't have great facial symmetry. I have okay facial symmetry. I know it. I've known that for years. Bradley Cooper, they tried to say he was the sexiest man alive. I said one of his eyeballs is in the wrong place. What are you talking about? I got an eyeball in the wrong place. But then they talk about, Denzel Washington or whoever has like near perfect facial symmetry. Like I don't, mine's good enough to not be grotesque. But yeah, you look at Charlie Kirk, it's like he has that facial symmetry, but doesn't necessarily have he doesn't have dominant facial features, and his eyes are too close together. But I have less facial symmetry, but do have, in spite of my weak chin, dominant facial characteristics. And thankfully, my eyeballs are not too close together. Thankfully. Now, if they both look like the one that's in the wrong place, I'd probably be in trouble. Got one where it's supposed to be, and one's like, I don't know about that other one. What's it doing? I'm suspicious of that other one. What's he doing? He's up to something, you know. And that's what I mean by the subconscious mind decodes these symbols, man. Everybody sort of knows, you know. Everybody sort of knows. Do I have to pull over again? I think I have some. Yeah, I've got some of that expensive Mountain Valley water in here somewhere. I can reach it and not crash into a guardrail. I need some light for this project. Oh, it's way the fuck over there. Stop again. Damn it. All right. All right, we got it. And I'll tell you what I think about with the Charlie Kirk stuff is, it shows you how groups of people will just latch on to a figurehead that performs and espouses their rhetoric, but then doesn't embody it, right? And symbolically, the signs are there. Well, like, wait a minute, something is suspicious. Of course, suspicious means without evidence. But then, like, if you look at bodybuilding and strength sports and, just what I like about sports is we have things we can measure. So you got this coach Greg Doucette. He's got this big YouTube channel. And, I've had my own involvement in fitness and all of this. But the thing about Greg is that he's very accomplished. He's had world records in strength, right? Like, it's one of these people that's just crazy fucking strong, but he doesn't seem like he would be crazy strong for his size. But the thing about being crazy strong for size is he has to be able to lift the motherfucking weights. And he's like 50, and he's still strong. But so when he was young, he's one of these just really competitive motherfuckers who was also just naturally gifted, and could just bench press some crazy amount of weight for his size. And at a certain point, like, broke the fucking world record. And also was a competitive cyclist. But he doesn't seem like the type of person. And he like did all these bodybuilding shows and all these things and had all these accomplishments. But his personality and the way he comes across doesn't meet enough of these masculine metrics, right? So, he's never really treated like he's just big, great person. Meanwhile, surprise, surprise, the person who can actually do the shit, doesn't even really care that they make fun of him, that he's made fun of. And he's rich. He's gotten rich from all of it, But it's interesting to see, especially in the social media age, how people react to him where he's not really viewed authoritatively. But there's this other guy, Mike Israetel, who's less accomplished, but has been better at behaving like some sort of dominant Chad type of dominant guy who takes himself way too seriously. And, went and got a doctorate, claims to be some genius and all of this stuff. And now it's all coming out that more or less he's fudged a lot of it. And he's actually pretty much a bozo. But then you've got, but he's been treated authoritatively, but you've had Greg Doucette, who on some level has been the real deal, who's been treated like he's a bozo. And now people are kind of seeing a little bit, oh, well, wait a minute. The one we thought was a bozo doesn't really care if we treat him like he's a bozo, but, he's actually more the real deal than this guy who's comes across authoritatively because he's got a certain type of he's got a certain vocal tone. He's probably been through media training, but then, Greg Doucette does his videos and he sounds like, a squeaky character from a Disney. Like, that's what he sounds like, because he probably just doesn't care. He's like, yeah, well, I can bench press 500 pounds or whatever, or used to be able to. So what's the fucking difference? It's basically like, well, I can bench press 2 of you motherfuckers. So what's the matter? Where Mike Israetel, it finally came out, could barely bench press like 225 pounds 3 times. Right? And I'm like, well, shit, I was almost that strong. Was that strong? It's kind of see Charlie Kirk that way. It's like, why was he treated like he was this certain type of person? But it's like all the signs are there that that's not who he is. Meanwhile, Greg Doucette is actually performing the things. It's like, well, but he seems like a bozo. Oh, okay. Well, let's go. Let's just go with the seems like a bozo part then, I guess. And this sort of is the Chad. And I'm not calling Charlie Kirk a Chad. I'm saying this is sort of the Chad thing. Whereas if a guy he seems to meet certain metrics, he's just kind of treated that way. And it's even come out to where, some of these nerds have figured out where they take like some Giga Chad's picture and dating profile, and they put right on the dating profile that they were convicted of like domestic violence against their last partner. And then like hottie after hottie after hottie's sliding in the DMs basically. And he's like, well, I got an ankle monitor and I can't, I got a curfew and all of this. We got to work around that. She's like, oh, I don't care. I don't care about any of that. Because he's got this chiseled face and he's 6'4", broad shouldered, and claims to have some certain level of education or whatever. Why does she care that he may have got convicted for smacking around the last bitch? Right? Why does she care? She'll get in line to maybe be the next one. Well, but that's his humiliation ritual. Mike Israel, because now he's saying he's catching all this heat. He straight up said, and I saw him on a podcast where they were basically like, they were more or less like, how did you get to be this rich and famous, basically? And he said it like he was joking, but he basically said that he found out who had the power and he went and blew all those guys. That's basically what he said. He just basically said that he was willing to blow anybody he had to blow to get ahead. But he said it like he was joking. But I'm watching this going like, oh, he ain't joking. He ain't joking. Now, he might be speaking metaphorically, but he's, whether that they let him say, who knows? I don't even want to get into the details, but, he let people do something to him. Clearly. Well, yeah, and the thing about Charlie Kirk is that'll be a never-ending rabbit hole as far as, was that a biological man? Was it not? Was it a woman? I mean, that just that'll be a never-ending rabbit hole. So I just choose not to go into the rabbit hole. I don't know. I don't care. It's whatever to me. And if other people treat it as entertainment, that's fine. I've got other things to entertain myself. But all I need to know is watching what his widow's doing. It's like, oh, okay. Well, it's now she's up there in black leather pants and JD Vance is pawing at her. It's like, all right, well, I mean, it's not too much else I need to know. That tells me everything I need to know. I'm good on all that. And then, who do you almost never hear use the word cuck? I basically never say that word. Meanwhile, as the road is so destroyed, everything went flying because of how destroyed the roads are in the richest country that's ever existed. I don't even know where the streaming phone went. That was such a violent crash. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this, I don't know where the, okay, we got it. Found it. I have too many phones. I got confused. What was I talking about? Oh, because I've read so many books, I knew what the word cuckold. I knew the dictionary definition of the word cuckold, and then studying, dating and relationships and all of that. So when we first started hearing people called cucks, I was like, okay, I actually knew what that word meant. Cuckold, Cuckold, cuckold. And so the people who call everybody cucks, those are the cucks. I mean, obviously. Now, whether they act on it or repress it, there's nothing in Benton that reacts to that, right? I don't have a reaction to that because in order to wrestle with and reckon with the dead flesh, I know exactly what titillates me and I know exactly what doesn't titillate me. That doesn't do anything for me. So the people who run around using that word all the time, whether they understand it or not, that gives them a boner. Period. Because why are they focused on it? And why does Benton almost never use that? Because I don't think that way. And in fact, my increasingly sensitive internal space is letting me know that this isn't even appropriate to discuss in the first place. So we're going to need to move on and get out of the details. And there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with that is the repression is what's harmful to the individual because it's not their fault. They don't control the part where their fallen, wicked, dead flesh responds with sexual titillation to certain things. They don't control that. It's beyond their control. And then what's interesting about that is it has shame built right into it. So that's interesting. If you examine the phenomenon, shame is actually built into it. And so, just thinking about that sort of thing is a way for the person who's probably never going to act on it, right? Sort of vicariously, having that titillation, and part of which is that even a vicarious experience of shame, And so when I hear people talk about a cuck chair, I'm like, well, why is this even coming up? Because I don't even think about that. But now I'm thinking about it because somebody mentioned it, and now, unfortunately, I've mentioned it, so now the listener might be thinking about it. It's like, well, wait a minute, why is this? So they're sort of exposing their hand in a way and saying, like, why are they thinking about that in the first place? So, yeah, if Benton gets caught checking out a dude, it's like, yeah, I was checking out a dude. Like, what do you want from me? I don't control the part where part of this particular dead flesh responds to occasionally. It's like, oh, there's a dude, and checks him out. But that's been less and less. But my point is, that ain't me. That's not who I am. That's not what I am. That's the dead flesh. I mean, who cares? What's the fucking difference? Well, where it becomes problematic and harmful is when the being is unwilling to accept that about their own flesh, where they won't accept it, but they want to run around trying to accuse other people of being cucks. It's like, And not that they're accusing Benton, but it's like, I'm looking at them like, I don't know what to tell you. I probably could have banged every single one of my friends' old ladies. Most likely, I'm just being real about it. Now, I choose not to do that. And in fact, I've never had anything to do with any of my friends. So if my friend dated a girl and they broke up, I still wouldn't have anything to do with it. That's how I roll. But it's like, yeah, if I wanted to, I probably could have banged every single one of my friends' old ladies. So what? I knew a guy that pretty much banged all his friends' old ladies. I mean, that's not an accomplishment. It's really not. I never viewed it as an accomplishment. And it's sort of like this incel talk. It's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I banged a 15-year-old and I was 15. It would have happened when I was 12, except I was so sheltered that I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I didn't know that this 14-year-old broad was trying to bang me. So it's like, it didn't happen. But, you know, like that's sort of the opposite of an incel. So, I mean, it says more about the person who's, it's probably, you know, if it's not a woman calling me an incel, that's probably an incel calling me an incel. It's like, well, wait a minute. You know, I wasn't the first necessarily in my peer group, but I was one of the first. And again, who cares? I'm not, why would I be proud of that? Why would I be proud that I probably could have banged all my friends' old ladies? Who cares? You know, and that's the person. So why are these other people so not obsessed, but why are they interested in certain things? It's because they can't face it about themselves. They're not allowed to, and they won't let themselves realize that, I don't know, maybe they could get off on that. And, you know, I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't, but, you know, how is the being ever going to, you know, facilitate these spiritual experiences? And we talk about being delivered, you know, delivered by, for, and with the power in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus. Well, delivered from what? Well, part of that is delivered from the sexual deviance of the flesh, you know, because let's face the reality, anything other than when the man has sex in the missionary position with his wife to try to get her pregnant, anything beyond that is is sexually deviant. And I mean anything. Anything whatsoever that is not specifically that is sexually degenerated, depraved, and deviant. Anything. I don't care what it is. So who amongst us has it like that? You know, I mean, come on. I'm one of the more prudish people you're going to meet if we keep it just to, if we keep it to a particular sport, right? As long as we only talk about one pastime, I'm on the prudish side of things. If I was into a bunch of freaky stuff, I don't think it would have been too hard to make it happen personally, but it's like, not what I'm into. Now I'm not into anything because I've been delivered from all that. And see, that's what's ultimately important is, yeah, I can talk about, we can discuss some of the ins and outs as long as we don't stay there and we bring it to, it's the transcendence, it's the victory over the dead flesh. Again, it's Christ's victory over death, right? By growing and changing and evolving and moving beyond that. And how is the being going to do that while the being represses it? The being's not going to. See? So in some ways, I would say it's necessary for the individual to fully understand and accept that, yeah, there are certain things that give certain guys boners, and that's just, it's not really up to them. It's just, it is what it is. Better to deal with it and move on than to get stuck there. And that's where we see with MAGA is you got a lot of repressed homosexuals. And you can talk about Pete Buttigieg and you can talk about this Scott Bessent so you're blue in the face. At least they're not repressed. And Buttigieg still talks about, that at a certain point he realized that he, just wasn't willing to live that way anymore. And I'm not saying that that's good. I'm saying if the person thinks they're going to grow and change and evolve beyond, they're going to have to deal with that at some point, right? They're going to have to. They say, well, yeah, it's wrong. Exactly. It's all wrong, except for the missionary position to try to get your wife pregnant. So what are we talking about? And I'm not enforcing that. I'm talking about in a Christian sense, as far as the Christians are concerned. If it ain't exactly that, what are we talking about? And so Benton has retired. I've had absolutely no experiences for about 8 years now. And I mean, none. And so that when you hear me say it, I say, I hope I don't get married for the third time. Because the fact is, that's, the only way I'm going to get to experience that again. I have to get fucking married. I want to get fucking married again. And I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any children. Oh, thanks. I got plenty of money, but we'll pay it forward. Some homeless person will be thankful. Of course, I was going to give them money anyway. But yeah, thanks. Much appreciated. Maybe I'll finally get off my ass and pay for the StreamYard. It's so much. They just want way too much. It's about double what it should be for StreamYard. Really is. It should be about 20. Well, it's almost double. 25 is reasonable. 45 is fucking crazy. And so I would assert that on the so-called right wing, a lot of the repression, the sexual repression, it makes things possible where you can have a Charlie Kirk or a Donald Trump or a Tom Cotton, and people can all pretend like Melania is good looking. She ain't good looking. She looks like what's that? I can't think of it. That's not a good looking woman. It's not. But just everybody's going to agree and fawn all over how beautiful Melania. She's not beautiful. She ain't ugly. She's attractive. That is not some beautiful, gorgeous. It's just not. Sorry. Just like that when Tiger Woods got married, I took one look at that woman and said, well, that's yeah, she's beautiful. She's objectively very attractive in the face. That's a very plain looking. I'll tell you who Melania looks like is that the old lady from Anne of Green Gables. I loved Anne of Green Gables. I watched that shit every time it came on PBS. I was right there, buddy. Now, I didn't seek it out, and I didn't go to the damn TV. Well, I probably did actually. I probably said I haven't seen Anne of Green Gables in a while. Let me check the TV guide. I wonder when it comes back on again. But Miranda, was that her name? Miranda. That's what Melania looks like. Now in Anna Green Gables, nobody considered her to be an attractive woman. But yeah, she was attractive. She wasn't ugly, but that's not. She's not the local fucking belle of the ball, right? And then you got Anna Green Gables competing for Chad, you know, Wesley, right? So it's like, yeah, I've got no problem with Donald Trump finding, the old lady from Anna Green Gables attractive. That's his business. But it's like fawning over her. Larry was doing it physically. I said, "What are you talking about?" Trying to say, not that she was beautiful, but trying to say that she was, wasn't ugly or wasn't unattractive or what. I'm like, what? No, what are you talking about? Nobody thinks Hillary. No, nobody gives a damn about Hillary's looks. You know what? What? And trying to say, oh, for her age. I said, absolutely not. Now, part of that was growing up in Arkansas, and she wasn't good looking at 40. How's she going to be good looking at 7? It doesn't even make sense. What? Hillary? Are you crazy? Now, I'll tell you who's good looking, but she's out of her fucking mind is that uh, Prince Harry's wife. What the hell's her name? I can't even remember her. Oh, Meghan Markle. Yeah. People can't see that one. Yeah, she's fucking nuts. Nuts. That shit. But then whatever's wrong with my personality sees whatever's wrong with her personality and says, hell yeah, let me get some of that. Right. Let me get some of that. But I don't know how many of y'all have kept up with her because she's still attempting to be a media personality. And man, it's interesting to just see that level of personality disorder on display. I don't have a personality disorder, but I mean, she definitely does. But to see that level of personality disorder on display is quite interesting. As she attempts to pass herself off as a human, some version of Martha Stewart. It's like, no, we like Martha Stewart. Nobody likes Meghan Markle. Yeah, I wish I could pull up a picture of that old lady from Anna Green Gables. You'd be like, damn, she's right. Yeah, she lost about 75 pounds. You'd be like, damn, they look exactly alike. About this realm, if Meghan Markle had if the sexual repression being a big part of it, you know. And I recognize culturally in the deep South, a lot of what's gone on historically has been involved with, the idea of a hyper masculine culture. A lot of that's tied up in you can't be too nice to the boy. So it's like, yeah, maybe, probably my father never loved me, but maybe he would have, except, probably his father never loved him. And that's just, to further stoke, the idea of a civil war. But that because of the repressive dynamics where Sean Penn is he's like the highest ranking MAGA type. He's working with the government. He works for the government. He's in the military or whatever. But then, you know, he's accurately portrayed as very repressed, and he's into a bunch of weirdo, freaky stuff, but he's not really free to act on it, right? And so that you got the left wing who mostly just wants to do their version of Biden's poopy diaper, which is to laugh at Sean Penn depicting some version of a MAGA type who's also a sexual deviant weirdo, but it's all repressed. But everybody can see it. So, like at a certain point, he's checking out. He's like, he sees the enemy, the revolutionaries from a distance. But apparently, he's mainly just like checking out the chicks' asses through the fucking spyglass or whatever, through the whatever, military technology he has to spy on the enemy out in the desert or whatever. He's mostly just like watching them bend over. Whatever that is. I haven't seen the movie. Just read some reviews. And see, the lefty's just going to laugh and laugh and laugh because that's their version of Biden's poopy diaper. That's what they think is funny. Hey, look at this guy who's, coming up through this system, has no choice but to fit himself into this Christian puritanical framework, and he can't even accomplish his mission because he's too busy checking out these women of color's asses when they bend over in the out there in the context of the battle or whatever. Apparently, I think he ends up sleeping with one of them. Maybe I don't exactly know how that happens. I need to probably gonna have to watch it at some point. Like people can't even figure that one out. What's up, Miss Zinger? Oh, it must be Sunday morning. What's happening? Always good to see Miss Zinger in the house. So the only point I'm really trying to make about all this repression is, in the context of the movie, Sean Penn would be better at his job if he understood what he was attracted to and did not try to turn away from it in order to fit in with a puritanical, repressive culture. Instead, to just embrace it, and he doesn't have to act on it. He could just say, yeah, I do like the. Yeah, I choose to work for the government, and we got to defeat these revolutionaries. But meanwhile, some of them got fine asses. Like what? All things can be true, So it actually, the repression, in a way, it enhances the attraction. It makes it worse for him, because if he's actually trying to get a job done, it probably would be better if he could focus on something other than whatever's going on in his pants when he tries to put surveillance on the enemy, right? Meanwhile, somebody who understands themselves might say, oh, well, that Benicio del Toro is kind of cute. He's kind of handsome, and then just goes on about their day because they're not worried about whether or not they find Benicio del Toro handsome. It doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, there's a handsome man. Moving on, right? Oh, look, that chick's got a small waist and a bubble butt. Okay, moving on. Moving on to the next thing. Oh, but she's got dark skin and she's from another country, so I have to hate her. It's like, well, what are you talking about? And then so he has to hate the part of himself that finds that attractive. See, this is all pretty basic human psychology. And so the repressive side of the male attraction is I'm then expected to hate the part of me that says, oh, that's a good looking dude. Why? For what? What does that accomplish? Well, now I'm stuck in a thing. I'm putting all this energy into trying to repress, which is an active, ongoing process, a harmful, active, ongoing process of trauma, instead of just noticing and moving on to the next thing. Yeah, okay. Handsome man, moving on. Versus, oh my God, am I really thinking that that's a handsome man? How would I know? And just denying that reality, right? That's bad. It's harmful. It's not good. But nothing needs to be done. Like maybe somebody, again, the whole weird cuck dynamics. Yeah, it's weird. So what? If that's what interests them. What's useful is if they understand that they find that interesting, they can see it and go, okay, moving on. They don't need to put a bunch of energy into. So that's where you get this weird energy around people that constantly want to call people cucks or talk about cuck chairs or this or that. It's like, okay, but methinks thou doth protect. It's like, why is this a topic? I'm confused. But if I make a comment in passing about some attractive guy, it's like, okay, well, there's a sign, but we're not going to dwell on it. It's like, yeah, that's a good looking dude. Who cares? Who cares? Now, if you repeatedly hear me bringing all conversations back to how attractive certain men are, well, now you're going to start to wonder, well, what the fuck is wrong with Benton? Why is he making almost every, no matter what we talk about, Benton finds a way to call some man handsome? Like, so what's going on here? That's your sign that something's wrong. See? It's like, what is this? And guess who's no longer spiritually attacked that way? Me. Because again, once the realm sees that, okay, he's actually not attackable through this means, it moves on to the next thing. You can sort of, we can kind of find our way through this individually by just sort of watching what the realm does. Because remember, the realm, it's behaving based on inverting the nature of what I am. So once it sees, okay, well, he won't respond to this. He notices, oh, look, he notices the thing and immediately just moves on to the next thing. Well, clearly that's not going to affect him. The more the being focuses on it, even if it's in a negative way by repressing, that's still a focus, right? That's still a focus. And this world is so sick. I choose to remind myself of the beauty of women. I mean, I think the reality is the more men let the realm promote Melania, like she's gorgeous, or what's her name, Elin Woods, as if she's gorgeous. I tell you, who's always been a smoke show is like Sarah Jessica Parker. That's a fucking. She's a smoke. Always been a smoke show. But the gay men that are in charge of fashion and the what's viewed as attractive, they never were willing to sign off on Sarah Jessica Parker or even what's her name, Arn's wife in True Lies. I forget her name. Or even like an Elizabeth Shue. Like, beautiful, very beautiful, just kind of like normal concept. But then, Melania, that's who a gay guy thinks is beautiful because he's not attracted to women in the first place. Like Michelle Pfeiffer, that's what a gay guy thinks is a beautiful woman. Yeah, she's beautiful. She ain't giving nobody a boner. Sorry. That who was that other one? That Callista Flockhart on that TV show. Oh, now it's anorexic women are the sex symbols. I don't think so. Nobody's looking at Callista Flockhart getting a boner. Sorry. Or if they are, I mean, anything will give them a boner. Yeah, she's attractive. Sure. So is Melania. It's not the same thing. And then we all sort of have our preferences within that. So if I mention Meghan Markle, some people might be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Exactly. We all kind of have our preferences. To me, it's where it gets. You try to pretend like Melania is universally attractive. She's not. She's not. But then, at a certain point, almost every man on the planet would be like, "Yeah, Carmen Electra, or what's her name? Even Jenny McCarthy, or uh, the other blonde." Well, I can't remember these chicks' names. Uh, the chick from Baywatch, Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. I guess he was married to her at a certain point. And it reminds me, I saw many years ago. I saw some band in Chicago with a female singer, Asian singer. I mean, she was just unfucking believable up there, singing and you know, very powerful singer, rock and roll singer. And I promise you, 9 out of 10 men in the crowd were just like, "Holy shit, this is crazy how hot that chick is." That's what I'm talking about. If you had 10 men and you got Melania, at least 5 to 6 of those, at least 4 or 5 of those men, I'd say a minimum of 3 out of 10 are going to be like, eh, maybe 4 out of 10. She's all right. She ain't ugly. Same thing with that Tiger Woods wife. Yeah, all right. She's pretty. What do you want? Yeah, okay. Wouldn't kick her out of bed for eating crackers, as some like to say. And so, again, it's bad for society to promote all these things, in my view, because deep down we all know it's a fucking lie. Anyway, I guess I'm done with that rant. I'm kind of hungry. I got half a watermelon over here. Might have to stop and carve that bad boy up. 6 miles from Chunky, Mississippi. That's a bit on the nose, don't you think? Mississippi, of course, always ranked near the top for fattest states. Reminds me of talking to King Stephen about how fat Americans are, especially in the middle part of the country. And I said, yeah, in Oklahoma, they got these billboards on the interstate advertising a buffet called Chair Crushers. And there's a picture of a fat person breaking a chair. I think he thought I was making it up. No, it's really. Now, maybe that's somebody's idea of a joke. I don't know that that's a real restaurant. I'm telling you, those billboards, I've seen multiple of those billboards on the interstate. I'm just going to assume that's a real place somewhere. Chair Crushers. Oklahoma, of course, also one of the fattest states. Arkansas, certainly, although I believe the meth epidemic has cut into that to some extent. Speaking of weight, I've got proper love handles again. I wouldn't say I'm getting worried necessarily, but it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Might have to actually start thinking about how much food I'm eating. It's been several years now of either in a big caloric deficit or just so thin it didn't really, I could pretty much eat as much as I wanted to at any given time, as long as I wasn't making myself sick anyway. Get a little foggy out here. That's clearing up. And then King Stephen talked about they opened. I guess they opened the Popeye's Chicken somewhere where he lives in northern Canada, and a particularly cold part of Canada. And I guess they opened a Popeye's Chicken, and he talked about it. He went in there and ate. And I guess there was a black person in there, and King Stephen held up a fried drumstick and sort of, gave a toast to the black man or whatever. And a lot of people miss King Stephen's humor, I think. I feel like they miss his humor. He's a pretty funny guy. And then I got to tell him, yeah, where I'm from, the best fried chickens in gas stations. And when I pick up, I like thighs, of course. I'm a thigh man. And at least you really, the best chicken, you're going to pick up a thigh and hold it off the plate. You're going to have one drop of grease will drop off of the piece onto the plate. That's pretty much your perfect piece of fried chicken. And yeah, we got churches and Popeyes and KFC, but the best food, the best in town is going to be at some gas station somewhere. And pretty much you can go to any gas station in my hometown and they probably have fried chicken. And if they do, it's probably pretty damn good, most likely. And I don't mean chicken strips. I'm talking about actual, on the bone chicken. With some JoJo's. Y'all know what those are. back. Man, that was like a crazy dead spot. I guess we're back. I don't know. We've come into Meridian, Mississippi. I suppose a proper town. There was no signal for several minutes. Well, I guess I'm rested up now. We'll see what they do to me this next week, this coming week. I hit the wall, man. I guess on Thursday, I guess it was. I was over it. Only bad thing when I went to this Walmart in Monroe, Louisiana, they had no egg selection. It was just the great values, all they had. I've been able to get my Egglands vest for pretty much the whole time I've been working this job. I have been able to find them. My eggs. Went ahead and stocked up anyway. I almost went to a different Walmart, but I couldn't. That was when I was still working through the fatigue, man. The brain fog was so bad. I remember just looking at the hoodies and could tell I was just fucking out of it, man. I found a black hoodie, $20. Site. I'm mostly wearing all black for homelessness purposes. Just can't have light colored clothing pretty much at all. It immediately gets dirty. For the homeless person. Some people have a strange ability to wear pretty much anything and not get dirt on them, but I do not. I'm the opposite of whatever that is. Might stop and do my laundry, but I probably just wait till we're done for the day. The royal we. Yeah, it's interesting going through all of that, talking about the realm and all the political stuff. More so the personalities and the figures, and then realizing the strength of the delusion and you know, where does that take the being? Did I begin to identify with the delusion itself? I would say no, but that the chance is always there to start taking things a little too seriously, which really is only possible by failing to reconcile and solve for waking dream, surrealistic unreality. And with it being Sunday morning, I do have a bit of a history doing live streams early on Sunday morning for whatever reason. As we pass by the Chunky River Harley Davidson, I bet they can build you a custom suspension for your Harley that keep that back fender off that back tire. I know, do Harleys have back fenders? I don't know. I don't know anything about motorcycles. Or little. I know little to nothing about motorcycles, I should say. One thing about motorcycles and Benton being high testosterone, thrill seeking to some extent, somehow I just knew as a young person to stay away from motorcycles because that certainly could have been the death of me, right? Somehow I just knew, stay the fuck away from motorcycles, sir. That is not for you. Cars are fun enough. You don't need a motorcycle. All right, bathroom break. Maybe. Its shoulder will cooperate. It's disappearing rapidly. Yeah, we'll stop here. Nothing going on anyway. Finally, most of the folks have gone to bed. Their Saturday nights have finally ended for most of them. It's 5 a.m. All right. Oh, man. Shit. Yeah, I think it's watermelon time. Man, when I was driving to Jackson, Mississippi yesterday, or Saturday, like Friday, day before yesterday, there was a few fruit stands, and a couple of them had real good, you could tell just from driving by, they were real good watermelons. But problem with that is by the time I see the place, it's really too late to stop, even if there's somewhere for me to pull over. It's a bit disappointing. Definitely would have been better watermelons than whatever I got out of Walmart yesterday, but oh well, such is this slow process of death. Not free to stop and take our time and smell the proverbial roses, as it were, or as it may be. Yeah. Man. All right. Where's my cutting board? There it is. Yeah. Of course, surprise, surprise, I pull over and somebody else pulls over. Again, the normalizers and just, sort of need somebody else to make it okay, but whatever. It's fine. The imitators. Sometimes people get the wrong idea. I've met more than one person who, talks about going to like maybe like a roadside cafe type of place, and like truckers know where the good food is. And I pointed out, well, that's you can't. Only certain places can a big rig be parked. So those you see those big rigs there. Part of that is because they have parking for big. I mean, if the place has parking for big rigs are going to park there. Whether or not the drivers are going in and eating the food. What I know about truck drivers, most of them not that picky. Not that picky when it comes to food. Oh yeah, watermelon. I left a little too much on the rind there though. So now we get to cut the rind up. Oh man, that's what we want. Bowie knives fall into the ground. They're falling to the floor. That's what we need. I wish I'd pulled my curtains. Now I didn't foresee somebody pulling over and jumping out to check their load. Don't need any looky-loos out here. People will watch anything. I mean, anything. It don't matter what it is. And in fact, in order for me to go to Walmart yesterday, I didn't want to have to drag my trailer down there. I like to go early, so I'm in there talking to the lady, making sure they're not going to tow me or whatever if I leave my trailer. And I got social skills and all of this, and I start talking to this woman, and she's cleaning the coffee area or whatever because she's a hard worker, I guess. And I just started the conversation with her, trying to figure out if I can leave my trailer there. And I look up, and just some bozo white dude customer, just some local dude, probably. I don't know. He's standing there like he's in the conversation. I just look at him. I kind of gave him a funny look, and then I guess he realized, and he kind of went on about his business. He was just going to stand there and watch the show. It's like, yeah, I know I'm entertaining, sir, but I mean, come on. This is not a very high bar we're setting for ourselves. Like, come on, man. And it's a woman, hypothetically, what if I'm trying to flirt? Right? Things are going, what is he going to try to cock block? And I mean, I wasn't flirting with her, but, a man and a woman might like to have a little back and forth. You never know. A pleasing interaction. He's free to go talk to the women if he wants to. It's weird, man. Weirdos. Everybody's weird. And so I've been weird since day one. So it's kind of like I'm still weird, but I don't know, man. It's like these other people, they don't know they're weird. Like, I'm just looking at him like, don't you know this is fucking weird, man? Come on. But at least he realized, I just looked right at him. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You want to, now, if he's free to just sort of, hang back and observe, but he's standing right there, like his body language is like he's in the conversation. It's like, come on, bro. Better see your way out of this one. This is fucking strange. They will watch. And they've lost the ability to, they don't understand that, yeah, we're looking at you, sir. We can all see you just standing there watching this like it's television. Like, this is fucking bizarre. It wasn't that long ago that, yeah, people would, the idea of people watching or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're watching from a distance. You're not like fucking involving it's not gonzo journalism, man. You're not a participant. You're not also a participant. He's free to go. And again, he could have been already talking to her when I might have had to wait my turn. Nobody was having any conversations with anybody. Oh, well, Benton shows up and starts talking. Now we're all fucking engaged. It's weird. Knock it off. I remember when public was so loud, you really couldn't hardly overhear half the time. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. Then you got this idea of everything's got to be refrigerated. I cut this watermelon in half yesterday and just left it like in a box on the floor, red side up. It's completely fine. Ain't nothing wrong with this watermelon. That's the way that works. Yeah, buddy. I think the other one's going to be a little better than this. I got another one for tomorrow, and then I guess the next day. They didn't have my grapes though, man. 2 Walmarts in a row, no seeded grapes. I'm off them seedless. That's not even the same thing. And they don't. I don't know. It is what it is. And I passed on the blueberries, but I could have got some blueberries. And I got some onions and some cilantro for the beans and the fish. Oh, buddy. I tweaked my back a little bit, dragging the water into the truck. I know not to reach out away from my body and set something down, but did it anyway. I don't think any permanent damage was done, but it's a little sore. My lower back's a little sore. Damn it. Don't need any of that. Well, shit. I think I'm out of shit to say. It's a bummer. I'd keep going, but we're out of stuff to say. Oh, 3.5 hours. We did all right. I'm out. Bye.